the shadows, bound for the gallows, a dead man walking, till love came calling. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. 6 feet under, I thought it was over, and answered a prayer, the voice of a savior. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. All at once I came alive, this beating heart, these open eyes, the grave let go, the darkness should have known. You're still rolling stone, you're still rolling stones.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Teresa Leach-Simon. I'm on the banks of the Grand River in downtown Paris. First of all, we would like to thank everyone for the donations for the Back to School program for the kids. Not only did we meet our target, but we exceeded it. So we'll be posting some pictures of the donations shortly. On behalf of the community, thank you. Secondly, I just wanted to announce that we're having our family outdoor service on August 23rd, 4 p.m. at the Cochrane Farm. Address is 216 Air Road, and please RSVP. Bring a chair or sit in your vehicle, whichever makes you more comfortable. I'd like to pass this off to Barb, who has an announcement for our kids. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Barb Robinson. I'm the Children's Ministry Coordinator at Paris Presbyterian Church, and I want to tell you about a cool project that we're doing with the kids. As you know, we're undergoing some renovations at Paris Presbyterian Church, and there's a space available that we can put in a time capsule. So we're putting together a time capsule. So if you go on the newsletter, you can download these documents and print them out, and then there's all kinds of cool things in here to do, and you can fill them out as much as you like, and then bring them to the church and put them in the mailbox, and we'll put them in the time capsule. Now, if you don't have a printer, if you just email me at my email address, then I can print them out for you and get them to you, no problem. So yeah, we'll look forward to getting those finished, and we'll put them in the time capsule, and years from now we'll look back on it and really have some fun looking at those things. So.
Sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit.
between where I used to be and this reckoning. I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire standing next to me. There was another in the waters holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding of how I've been set free, there is a cross that bears the burden when another died for me. There is another in the fire. Oh, my dad left her head beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. And should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning, either way I won't bow to the things in this world. I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire standing next to me. There is another in the waters holding back the seas. And should I ever need remind what power set me free, there is a grave that holds no body. Now the power lives in me. There is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh, I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness flies to him. I can feel the roar in the heavens as the space between wears. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come obey in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning. I know I will never be alone. I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire standing next to me. There'll be another in the water holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, I'll count the joy in every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. There'll be another in the fire. Oh, there'll be another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us again this week. This week we're going to have a conversation around, perhaps for some of you, a bit of a sensitive subject. I don't know if you ever think that there's certain topics, certain subjects that you shouldn't be speaking about in church. I guess if I was to make a list of more awkward conversations, at the top of that list would be sex, politics, and money. But when you start to think about the reality of following Jesus, we start to realize that nothing should be left unspoken about. Nothing should be considered off limits. I think sometimes the challenge that we may face in life is that we want to segregate our life. You know, we have work life, we have family life, we have social life, and then we have kind of faith and church life. And we're okay with it as long as, you know, kind of our faith stays in this segment. But when the reality of Jesus starts to leak into everything else, that is sometimes when it begins to get complicated. But when you start to realize and start to understand more of who Jesus is, you recognize that he doesn't want to be simply a part of your life. He wants to be all of life. Maybe you've heard me say in the past this idea of living life knowing that God is with us. For me, what that means is the fact that God, Jesus, is with us in the midst of all things. And so he's concerned about everything. And so this week, we're going to talk not about all three. We're going to talk about money, or maybe even broader, possessions, our stuff. Because money is a part of life, a very important part of life. Our possessions can bring great joy and excitement, but we also understand how money can cause worry, can bring stress, can oftentimes have an impact negatively towards health and even relationships. And so it's something we should talk about. And if we truly want to follow Jesus, then we should get his perspective as well. And when you start to learn and read more of the teachings of Jesus, you realize that Jesus actually has a lot to say when it comes to money, possessions, and our stuff. If you start to read more and more, you realize that Jesus actually talks an awful lot about it. More than prayer, more than fasting, more than even loving your neighbor. And you got to start to wonder, why? So this week, we're going to talk about how does faith intersect with our stuff. Now I realize that for those of you watching, there are many of you coming from different places when it comes to faith. For some of you, you've been a follower of Jesus for a very long time. For others, it may be a more recent reality. And then there's some of you that are still trying to figure this out. Still trying to understand not only who Jesus is, but what this means for you in the midst of all of life. This is the amazing thing, is that regardless of where you are on what I would call the spectrum of faith, there's always a next step. So what I'm going to ask is that as we, in a moment, turn to some of the words of Jesus, that we'll do two things. The first thing is we will not be defensive. Because I don't know about you, but oftentimes when we start to have conversations around finances, around giving, we can sometimes be a little bit defensive. I know I am. The second thing is I want you to make it personal. So that this isn't just simply a conversation that you hear and then think, yeah, that's a good idea in theory, but I'm not actually going to put it into practice. This whole series this summer has been about putting our faith into practice, about living life with Jesus in the midst of all things, which means we want to take our direction, our lead from him, even when it comes to our finances. And so let's jump in and see what Jesus has to say. We're jumping into the same passage we have over the last number of weeks. It's probably the most comprehensive teaching of Jesus that we have in the Bible when it comes to what does a lifestyle look like when it comes to following him. This week we're going to turn to the Gospel of Matthew, and we're going to read chapter 6, verses 19 to 24. This is what Jesus says. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either he will hate one and love the other, or he'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Here are a few words of Jesus that really circle around the same theme. Three kind of images that Jesus gives to us that start to point us in the direction about why Jesus speaks so often about finances. More than faith, more than prayer, even more than loving your neighbor. And the reason I believe is this: because finances, our money, our stuff, can often become one of the greatest rivals to God. I mean, turn back to this passage, and Jesus sets up kind of three images. The first one is he asks, what is our treasure in life? Jesus says, don't store up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust can destroy and where thieves can break in and steal, but rather store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. And so, what is it that is of greatest importance to us? Is it the things of this earth, where we realize can quickly come and go? Or are we creating treasures that have eternal value? Then Jesus turns to a second image that really focuses upon what is our focus. What is it that you are looking at? Because what your focus is begins to impact all of life. I believe Jesus is again saying that when your focus is purely on the material possessions, the things of this world, it's going to cloud your judgment. It's going to impact all of life. But if you focus on Him, it creates something even greater. And then Jesus concludes by simply kind of making a statement. Listen, you can't serve two masters. Either you will love one or you'll hate the other. You can't serve both God and money. It's kind of one of those mic drop moments of Jesus that if you weren't kind of following along with everything else, he just basically lays it out in simple formula. And so what does this mean? I think what Jesus is getting at is the reality of how we need to make Him the primary focus in life. One of my greatest quotes of Jesus comes in another gospel, the Gospel of John, where Jesus says, I have come so that you may have the abundant life, the life worth living. And what Jesus is reminding us, not only there, but I believe ultimately in this passage, is that abundance comes when we recognize that ultimate meaning and satisfaction does not come from the things of this world, but ultimately comes from Him. But before you shut me down, just listen to this. Understand what Jesus is not saying. Jesus is not saying that possessions and wealth are bad in and of themselves, because they can provide both great opportunities, but also tremendous challenges. What Jesus is saying is that just don't find your ultimate treasure in this wealth of this world. Remember when I started, I asked you to do two things. The first one was, make it personal. The second one was don't get defensive. Because I'm sure for many of us, we're like, okay, I get it. Jesus is saying this, but how do I evaluate my life? How do I start to understand where I land? For me, it really comes down to two questions that kind of help me kind of navigate. Is my focus too much on the things of this world? Is my focus being distracted from Jesus? And so I offer you these two questions, and perhaps it's a chance for you, after this message or later this day or even later this week, just to kind of think about it, just to kind of work it through. The first question is this, is what am I doing with my stuff? I'm making the assumption that all of us have stuff. All of us have finances. Some might have more, some might have less, some might be shinier. That's not the point. All of us has stuff. And I'm not asking you how much you have. I'm asking you, what are you doing with it? Is the primary purpose of your things to benefit yourself? Or do you see the opportunity to use what you have to benefit others and to benefit the work that God wants us to be involved in? I don't think Jesus is asking us to say, hey, listen, give absolutely everything away. But what Jesus is asking us is to recognize that we have an opportunity to use the things we have either simply for ourselves or for the benefit of others. When I start to work that question through in my mind, it starts to help kind of bring greater clarity into my life as to, am I focusing upon Jesus or am I focusing upon the things of this world simply to benefit me? That's the first question. The second question, I believe, takes it to another entire level. And the question is this, even more revealing. What is my stuff doing to me? What are the things that I have? Again, not asking how much you have, not asking if you wish you had more, but what is your stuff? What is your finances? What are your possessions doing to you? Because they have an impact on life and on faith. Our stuff can have an impact both positively or negatively. I think oftentimes Jesus identifies the importance of not making the things of this world the ultimate treasure because he knows where this will lead. One of the great challenges is too often we will find our sense of worth, our sense of identity in how much stuff we have. And maybe this has been a season where you realized how quickly it can go. But even if you haven't lost anything of significance right now, Jesus is ultimately saying to us, listen, you can't take it with you. So why are you placing such an importance upon it? Second challenge is too often when we put an importance on our stuff, we fall into the trap of comparison. Have you ever been in a situation where you have something, maybe it's a car, maybe it's a phone, maybe it's your house, maybe it's your clothing, some material possession. And you're really satisfied with it. You find great joy and contentment in it. But then one day you look over or you see on your social media feed that someone has something better than you. What's your reaction? Do you think, man, that is awesome? Do you say, I hope they're having as much fun with their better version than mine than I am with what I have? Maybe. Or do you respond like many of us, where you suddenly look at your phone or you look at your car, and suddenly there's not the same sense of joy that you had before because someone else had something better than you? I think Jesus tells us, listen, don't store up treasures on earth. Don't get into the rut of this game of comparison. Because regardless of how much stuff you have, I will make you this promise. Someone will always have more and it will always be better than yours. And this can be so unhelpful. And that's why Jesus says, listen, make your focus me. And then you'll begin to enjoy the things you have in the way I planned for you. Because Jesus wants us to enjoy the things we have. And one of the positive realities that when our ultimate treasure is found in Jesus and not the things of this world, is that we can really enjoy them for what they are. But we don't get too bothered when someone has something better, or when something we once had is no longer ours. It brings us to a greater sense of gratitude and thanksgiving. One of the positive benefits of when we make Jesus our treasure and not the things of this world is I believe we are more open to sharing what we have. Think about it this way. When you think of your stuff and your possessions, are you more of a open-handed person or closed-fisted? Have you ever seen a little kid with something they want and they don't want to share? Do they walk around haphazardly, kind of open-handed? Heck no, they've got that sucker clenched on lockdown, and you are going to have to fight them to get it. Unfortunately, too many of us never grow out of the clench fist phase. But when we make our treasure Jesus, I believe we start to open up. We start to open up our hands. We start to open up our houses. We start to open up with our finances. We start to open up with our things and see them as an opportunity, not just simply to be enjoyed by us, but to be enjoyed by others, to begin to benefit those around us. But there's a third thing, and I think this is very important for us to understand. You see, Jesus wants our focus to be on him, not because he needs our stuff, but because he wants our heart. And have you ever considered that when we give, that when we are generous, that it's not only for the benefit of others, but it actually begins to deepen our faith? Listen, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Old Testament, but back in the Old Testament, there was a practice where God started very early on with his people. And he says, listen, I want you to make an offering. And a portion of the offering was given to benefit others. A portion of the offering was given to kind of benefit the priest, to kind of build up the ministry. And then, listen to this, a portion of the offering was lit on fire. Get that. Imagine you gave a gift to the church. And we're very thankful, and we are very thankful. And we took a portion and we said, hey, we're going to use a portion to benefit the local food bank. Thank you so much. You'd probably be like, hey, that's amazing. That's fantastic. And then we're going to take another portion and we're going to use it to kind of help support some of our ministries with regards to youth in the community. You think, hey, I'm on board with that. That's fantastic. Oh, and then by the way, we're going to take a portion of it. We're going to go to Joel's place and we're going to light the sucker on fire. You'd be like, you have lost your mind. What are you doing? I don't give you my stuff in order to light it on fire. I get it. Listen, 100% behind the scene look, we don't burn our money, all right? We use it to benefit others. We use it to build ministries, but don't miss the point. It speaks to the reality that when you light something on fire, you give it up. It's no longer yours. There's absolutely no strings attached. And so what does it mean? You are giving simply out of an act of obedience, out of an act of an acknowledgement of saying, Jesus, my focus is purely on you. And so even if they burn my stuff, I'm going to be okay with that. So, where do we go from here? How do we get practical? Because one of the things I don't want to have happen is for you to say, you know what? I'm on board with this. I want to give a little bit more. But then you kind of walk away and you get distracted and you start doing other things and it doesn't become a part of life. I want to suggest two things. Two things that are helpful for me in the midst of how not only I view my stuff, but in terms of how I give of it. The first thing is be intentional. Don't just simply allow your giving to be based upon emotion or a specific circumstance. I get it. There are times where we will see a need and we want to give. And then we give and then we kind of go about our daily routine. And then we don't give again until we see a need revealed. That's kind of giving 1.0. Giving 2.0 says I'm going to give intentionally. Let me put it this way. Imagine every 6 weeks or every 6 months, you thought, you know what? I'm going to eat a salad because I'm going to be healthy today. Absolutely, you're healthy in that moment, but it's probably not going to impact your lifestyle for very long. Or the same thing with exercise. You think, you know what? I'm going to go for a run. And you go for a run and you think, oh, that was really good. And then you forget about it and you don't do it again for a long period of time. It's not going to impact your life. The same thing is true when we don't regularly give. It's not going to impact our life. It's not going to impact our faith. And so be intentional. The second thing is be specific. One of the challenges that we may face is think, okay, I'm going to be intentional, but the question always asked is, well, how much should I give? You know, I'm going to leave that up to you and God. But be specific. Land at a place of saying, this is what I'm going to give. And even if the bills get a little higher the next month or a little less comes in, continue to give that amount. And then begin to see what God is going to do through you and what God is going to do in you. Understand, one of the greatest lessons that I learned is that Jesus doesn't need our stuff. Jesus doesn't want our stuff. He wants our heart. And oftentimes, what blocks us from truly giving that over to Him is the pursuit of the things of this world. And so I don't know where you stand when it comes to faith, when it comes to giving. But make it personal. Take some time this week to think, how can I take a next step? How can I make my finances, my giving, a part of my relationship with God? And then begin to see, not in just a week, not in just a month, but over the months, what God is going to do in the midst of your life. I'm going to pray for us because I know this is not easy. And I'm just going to pray with my hands open because I believe that we want to be open-handed people. And maybe if you're at home and you want to open your hands, or even as you're praying to God about this in the coming week, just begin to take that posture. And maybe that is your first next step. To take the posture of saying, okay, Jesus, I want to give more to you so that you will be the most important to me. Let's pray. And so, Jesus, we come to you today from different places with different amounts of stuff. And we are grateful that you are the one who gives us all good things. But Jesus, we know that there is so much competing within us. That so often we want to pursue the things of this world. We want shinier and brighter things, believing that that will bring us ultimate joy and contentment. But we just keep chasing them. May we place our focus upon you. May we make you our focus, our treasure, the one we ultimately serve. And so I pray for everyone watching that you would begin to speak into their lives. Begin to be specific for what their next step may be. For we ask this all, Jesus, in your name. Amen. Well, thanks for joining us this week. I hope you have a great week. I believe this coming week is going to be a great week. And I'm going to give you 2 reasons. First one is this. Next Sunday, August the 23rd, we are having an outdoor service at the Cochrane Farm, and that's going to be amazing. My email's below. If you want to register, send me an email. We're fairly full already right now, but we do have a few extra spots available. But understand that Sunday afternoon, 4 p.m. is going to be different than what we're going to show online at 10:30. Consider it, if you're a baseball fan, a double header. right? We're not going to duplicate anything. So if you miss the afternoon, you can still watch online. If you watch online, still show up at the in-person service. Totally different. Second thing is you don't want to miss online next week, August 23rd. We're going to be wrapping up our series, and we're going to be talking about baptism. And we're going to actually be a part of someone's baptism, someone who's come forward and say, you know what, Jesus, I want you to be the top priority in my life. We're going to hear her story, an amazing story. And so don't miss, online or in person. Come to both. Would love to see you there. Have a great week. We're going to end with a song, and then hopefully we'll see you again real soon.
You give life, you unlock, you bring light to the dark.